Hi everybody, today we're going to solve 2012 Paper 1 question 31. The diagram shows 6 identical lamps, which is demarcated by a circle and an X. 4 ammeters, which is the circle and an A, and a battery, which can be seen over here. The current of the battery is 1.5 amp, which ammeter reads 1.0 amp. Now to solve the problem, I will first redraw the circuit into something that I am more comfortable with, which is to see the circuit in a vertical manner. Also, I have changed the symbol of the lamps into a symbol of a resistor, which is a rectangle. It is very normal for students to redraw circuits when solving physics questions, and this will actually help us to solve the question faster with our brain looking at something that we are more accustomed with. Now the first observation that I make of the circuit is that the resistors are in series and also in parallel with one another. A common problem that students always face is to identify which resistors are actually in series or in parallel with one another. For me, I have a simple trick to solve this issue. First, I will go to the positive side of the battery and then choose a color. In this case, I will choose red. And I will color the wiring of the circuit all red until a point where it reaches the resistor. Next, I will go to the negative side of the circuit and then shade it in another color. In this case, I will use blue color. And same thing, I will only be coloring the wires until the point where it reaches or hit the resistors. And for the wiring in the middle, I'm going to choose another color. In this case, I will be choosing green color. And now that we have the circuits, the wiring all colored in their colors, I can now then very easily identify which resistors are in series or are in parallel with one another. What we're going to do first is to observe these two resistors. Let's call it resistor A and resistor B. And now you see on the left side of the resistor A, it's blue and the right is green. So we're going to write down resistor A on the left side is blue, and on the right side it is green. And now observing resistor B, on the left side is green and on the right side is red. So similarly, we will write down resistor B, and on the left side it will be green and on the right side it will be red. And after you have drawn out this diagram over here, you observe the left side of A and B. They are different, and on the right side of A and B, it is also different. So when we have this case, when the left and the right side of the two resistors are different from one another, we can then conclude that these two resistors are in series with one another. Now moving on to our observation of the main circuit, we are going to group resistor A and resistor B into a big resistor that will contain both of them together. Now the advantage of identifying the resistors, whether they are in series or parallel, is that we get to group them together. In our case, we have identified that A and B are in series with one another. We can then use the formula, which is R effective is equals to RA plus RB. And using this concept of knowing that we have actually 3 pairs of resistors that are in series with one another, we can then combine them together into an effective resistor, in which I'm going to label them as resistor X, resistor Y, and resistor Z. Now, using the same method that we used over here to identify which resistors are in series or parallel with one another, we are now going to use the same thing for resistor X, Y, and Z. So for resistor X, on the left of resistor X, we see that the color is actually blue, and on the right, it is actually red. So what we're going to do now is to simply label resistor X. On the left, it is blue, and on the right, it is red. And same observation for Y and Z. We will know that the left side of the Y and for the Z are actually the same color together with X. And on the right side, it will be red. So same thing, we're going to observe now on the left side of X, Y, and Z. We will notice that all three is actually the same color. And on the right side of resistor X, Y, and Z, it is also the same color. So when we have a situation like this, when it's all hit, then we have the conclusion that resistor X, Y, and Z are actually parallel with one another. Now looking back at the question, let us quickly redraw the circuit that we have done up over here. Let me just take away the highlights and here we go. Now, it says in the question that the current in the battery is 1.5 amp. A good way that I help myself to understand amp better is to visualize them as running particles. So I'm sure you have seen in the television people participating in the track and field races, in the marathons, and what they do often is that they have a starting point, and the starting point in the circuit is the positive end of the battery, and the ending point is the negative end of the battery. So amp is the running particles that is starting point at the positive end of the battery, and what they're gonna do is that they're gonna run all the way to the negative ends. Now, for different physics question, you will have different kind of circuit layout, which means that the running track or the marathon track is going to be very different for each question. For this question, we can observe that there is 3 running routes to complete the race. The first one over here, the second one, and the third one. Now, more than to just complete the race, the particles actually carries charges, and they have a mission. And the mission is to distribute the charges equally around the resistors that can be found in different parts of a circuit. Now, the charges can be actually thought as food to be distributed to the resistors who are people in need. And the stronger the resistor, the less food they will need. And the weaker the resistor, which means smaller in amount, the more food that they will need. So the running particles are actually intelligent particles. Before they start the race, they will actually already know where the resistors are and how strong and weak they are, meaning how much charges or food they will actually need along the race. And for this question, because it is 6 identical lamps, all the resistors in the circuit is actually the same. What this means is that the running particles are supposed to distribute to each and every single resistor evenly throughout the whole circuit. And what that means is that in the 3 routes, they are equally important for the particles to go through and send in the charges. And since they are equally important, therefore, the number of particles that is required in each root can be simply known as 1.5 m divided by 3. 3 is because there is 3 roots to be covered, and this will give us an answer of 0.5 m. So now let's run through the race together. At the starting point, there is 1.5 m of running particles together, and they will start running, and until they hit this distribution point over here. What happens is that they have reached a critical point where the particles have to run in the first root. So what happens is 0.5 m of the particles would be actually running on this root, and this will give us a remaining of 1.0 m running down at this root. So let's continue the race. After 0.5 m have run through here, remaining 1.0 m continues the race until they reach another critical junction, which is over here. And at this critical junction, again, as we have calculated previously that 0.5 m is needed in each root, this second root also needs 0.5 m of particles. So we can know that 0.5 m of particles is also heading this way in the second root. So now at this critical junction, what we are left with is actually 0.5 m, which is the remaining of the amperes. And the remaining of the amperes will then continue to finish their race all the way until they reach the finishing point. Now the question is asking that at specific points, what is the ampere? So the question is asking at this point, this point, this point, and this point, which is known as A, B, C, and D. So now with the knowledge and information that we have, let's try to solve the problem. At point A, we know that the number of ampere that is at this point is actually 1.0 m. And at point B, we have 0.5 m. And at point C, we have 0.5 m as well. And point D, we also have 0.5 m. So to answer the question which ammeter reads 1.0 m, the correct answer should be A, 1.0 m.